Hey, what is up, my friend?
Oh, man. I'm like on vacation this week.
Oh, that's right. You took the whole week off. I forgot.
Yeah, staycation, really. I'm just gonna... Before we get into that, I just want to welcome everybody to another fantastic week of Case Files with Kat.
And Ashley.
What?
Woo!
What? So I am taking the week off after my crazy, hellish couple of months and staying home. And actually, I have nothing really planned. Really? But last night, Jason came into the bedroom because my body, with the EDS, it took a beating on Saturday night. And so really until today, I couldn't really walk. And I was laying in bed and I had the heating pad on my ankles. And he looks at me, he leaves the room, comes back in just to say, you cannot just sit in here and watch a RuPaul's Drag Race this whole week.
You can do whatever you want this whole week.
That's what I said. First I was like, I know. And then I was like, wait a minute. It's my week. I can do whatever I want. I have not yet watched RuPaul's Drag Race on my vacation. So anyway, but that's it. So what you got going on? What are you drinking?
I am drinking water because I still have the cyst on my lip that has to be removed. So
did we say it was a cyst last week?
Maybe.
I don't know that we did.
I went to the dentist and they said it was a cyst and I had to go to an oral surgeon to have it removed and biopsied and all that kind of stuff. So I haven't done that yet, obviously.
They have to do a biopsy?
Yeah, because there was some worry before when I was having all my other stuff done about the bone loss and all that stuff in my gums. And so they just want to make sure it's not like cancer or something, but I'm sure it's just a cyst. Nothing serious. It's just annoying more than anything.
Send all your good mojo, your good vibes, your love and your light and your healing energy and juju, all the good stuff. Send it Ashley's way. So it's just a cyst. Ugh.
I'm sure it is. Honestly, it's just more annoying than anything because it's right where my bottom lip rubs against my teeth when I eat and talk and stuff. And so it's like it never heals itself. So the only option is to get it surgically.
I get canker sores, so I know exactly what that feels like. I do. It sucks. Okay, well, I'm drinking vodka, although yesterday I did have beer and my body rejected it.
Well, that's not good.
I know. It was like, that was too many. Because over the course of the day I had 3 and it was like, that was too many. Didn't like that.
3 was too many?
Yeah, that was like my, all together, just my body was like, I know. I don't know what's happened. I don't know
either.
My version of hell has started to begin. So I can't drink beer. Okay, so let's just get into it. We'll just start. Okay. We're going to start the show. We don't lose any more listeners. Okay, so just like last week, we had another predictive text question of the week. Should we start there, shall we? Okay, so here it is. So it says, I am blank, ghost of blank. So we're in spooky season. Blech.
Spooky season.
Halloween, witches season, scary season. All right, she's typing.
Mine doesn't make any sense. You go first.
Okay, I'll go first. So mine is, I am so sorry. The ghost of, you guys are not supposed to be on the call today. I apparently work too much in my text messages. So, LOL. Okay, so what's yours?
Mine says, I am Ashley, ghost of my favorite third eye, and I have a meeting at the House of Representatives.
Well.
Okay, then. So, yeah.
That's awesome. That's a good one. I think he needed like frame
originally
that
just
one.
said third eye or whatever, so I just kept it going like you did, and it ended up I have a meeting at the House of Representatives, so which I've
At
never
least-
typed that phrase, so I'm not sure why it's on my
At least it wasn't like House of Pancakes. Or the House of
that'd be a better
Pancakes.
place. I'd rather have a meeting at the House of Pancakes.
Ew. Miss syrup.
Mm.
I haven't had like French toast and strawberry syrup in a long time. Okay, so now for some trivia. Well, actually, I don't know. It's not really trivia. I'm going to talk about this amazing article that I was reading. While I was looking up facts about my story theme, I actually came across this article. It's from the New Yorker, and I was just riveted. Just started reading it, and I was like, oh my gosh, you could almost do a whole story on it, but I'm not. It's called The Serial Killer Detector, and it's by Alec Wilkinson from November 2017. So it's a few years old, but it's still fascinating. So it's about this guy named Thomas Hargrove, who is a homicide archivist. You decide. For like the last decade or so, he's been collecting municipal records of murders, and he now has the largest catalog of killings in the country. And so this little project is called the Murder Accountability Project, or MAP. So in 2017, he counted 751,785 murders carried out since 1976. So 1976 to 2017, which is roughly 27,000 more than appear in the FBI files. So I don't know if all of you know this, all you listeners out there, but murders are supposed to be reported to the FBI, but they aren't always reported correctly or at all sometimes. Shocking.
Who would have guessed that?
I guess it's like people don't want to do the paperwork or whatever. It must be difficult. But anyway, so this accounts for the discrepancy in numbers. So using the computer code he wrote, he searches his archive for statistical anomalies among the more ordinary murders resulting from like lovers' triangles, gang fights, robberies, bar brawls, things like that. So each year, about 5,000 people kill someone and don't get caught. That's shocking.
Fun facts.
That's fun facts. And a percentage of these men and women have undoubtedly killed more than once. Hargrove intends to find them with his code, which he sometimes calls this a serial killer detector. So for those of you who listened to our earlier season's show opening, I say you walk past 36 murderers in your lifetime. So this guy is proving that.
I feel like you shouldn't publish it, like if you're trying to catch them, like because then wouldn't they like change their ways if they read it?
He's not. He's not changing. He's not giving away the secret, so there's no way for them to change. You know, he does say a couple of things because, like, it's called MAP, right? Murder Accountability Project, but it's called MAP. But part of the reason why it's called that is because, like, serial killers don't go out of their way to kill somebody. They don't travel across the state, kill someone, and come back home. They have what they call a killing field, right? Like that, like a radius of people. And, you know, we saw that with East Area Rapist and, you know, all these different killers, the Green River Killer. You have this circumference around the person's house. They're not going to really go outside of that. They're not going to go into unfamiliar territory. So you can kind of predict based on the space. For the Green River Killer, they had 18,000 names as potential suspects. Like, where do you start? Well, you look at the location of where the murders happened, where the bodies were discovered, and then you can kind of start doing a geolocation, right? Mm-hmm. So you can find out where they are. Anyway, so he says, and did you know about the different types of serial killers? There's different, they have different labels. I didn't know this. So, so this is from the New Yorker. He says, serial killers are not usually particularly bright, having an average IQ of 94.5. It's like a radio station, right? According to the database. They divide into types. Those who feel bound to rid the world of people they regard as immoral or undesirable, such as drug addicts, immigrants, or promiscuous women. They are called missionaries.
I see.
Black widows kill men, usually to inherit money or to claim insurance. Bluebeards kill women either for kill women either for money or as an assertion of power. A nurse who kills patients is called an angel of death. A troller meets a victim by chance, and a trapper either observes his victims or works at a place such as a hospital where his victims come to him.
Oh my goodness.
Those are all brand new terms to me. I don't know. Did you know any of those?
I mean, I knew Black Widow, but I didn't really think of it as like a subcategory of serial killer. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. But I had heard of Black Widow.
Yeah, an angel of death. Uh-huh. And that's it. Bluebeard? What? A troller, a trapper? Yeah. Okay, so one of MAP's most public benefits, the project has been making people aware of how few murders in America are solved. Again, from the New Yorker.
Well, that's not comforting.
In 1965, a killing led to an arrest more than 92% of the time. In 2016, the number was slightly less than 60%, which was the lowest rate since records started being kept. Los Angeles had the best rate of solutions, 73%, and Detroit the worst. Can you guess what that percentage is? How many murders are actually solved in Detroit in 2016?
3%?
14.
Oh, wow.
That's still...
I was just guessing really low because...
Yeah, it was super low. Yeah, 14%. Los Angeles, 73. Detroit, 14. Gosh. Like, that's huge, right? So this project demonstrates that there's a whole population of unapprehended killers that are clearly out there, he says. So now that we all feel safe and cozy, I'm gonna talk about a killer that was actually apprehended. All right, tonight I'm going to talk about a man named Keith Hunter Jesperson, also known as the Smiley Face Killer.
Oh.
Have you heard of him?
This is not the same as the other smiley face.
No, this is not that.
This is not that.
Not that. So this is...
No, that I have not heard of just him, no.
Single dude. So Keith Hunter Jesperson was born on April 6th, 1955 to Leslie and Gladys Jesperson in Chilliwack, British Columbia, Canada, the middle child of two brothers and two sisters. His father was a domineering alcoholic, shocker. And according to Jesperson, his paternal grandfather was also prone to violence. Jesperson's father denied being an abusive parent. However, while investigating for his book of the killer, author Jack Olson was able to confirm much of the claimed abuse with other family members, which is really sad. Jesperson's father also had a very, very, very low opinion of women, a very misogynistic and demeaning man. Jesperson was taught at a very early age how women should be treated, according to his dad. Because all in all, Jesperson wanted his father's attention, good or bad, right? Get in trouble, do something good. But Jesperson said that one of his earliest memories was being at the playground, and he had a rock, and he was at the top of the slide, and his brother was at the bottom. And he remembers having the thought to purposefully slide the rock down the slide to hit his brother in the head to get his father's attention. All for daddy. And it worked. Wow. You get attention, especially, and there's so many kids. You got the one, the middle kid. From an early age, he was treated like an outcast by his own family and teased by other children. He was very, very tall for his age. He was very tall at a young age. And he ended up being just this like lonely kid. And while he's out and about by himself because no friends and his own family kind of treats him like crap, he started to show a propensity for torturing and killing animals. So eventually his dad and his family moved into the state of Washington, and he had, again, trouble fitting in and making friends because of his large size. He grew up to be 6'7".
Oh, wow.
280 pounds or so. Maybe 240 when he was apprehended, but he was still like large.
Yeah.
His brothers did not help this. They nicknamed him Igor or Ig, which was a name that stuck throughout all of his schooling years. And because of this, Jesperson was just a shy kid. He was content to just play by himself much of the time. And that's when he would find animals. If he did play with other kids, he'd get in trouble for behaving badly and sometimes violently because he would start to get sick of their treatment of him. And then he would be severely punished by his dad. This included beatings, sometimes with a belt in front of others. And in one case, he received an electric shock, which is just torture.
Yeah.
So as young as 5, Jesperson displayed behavior that we now know to be signs of a future serial killer, right? He would capture and torture animals, dogs, cats, crows, gophers, anything he could. And he did this to have like a sense of power and control because he didn't have that anywhere else in his life. He enjoyed watching animals kill each other as well as the feeling. As well as enjoying the feeling he got from taking their lives. He said, like, once you've killed something, killing anything else doesn't mean as much. You know, it's like you've done it once. It's not as hard to do it again.
Well, then why keep doing it?
I know. So this continued as he got older. Jesperson would capture birds and stray cats and dogs around the trailer park where he lived with his family, severely beating the animals and then strangling them to death. Something for which he claims his father was very proud of him for. His dad would brag that his son was the one that killed all the strays in the mobile home park. So,
wow,
positive reinforcement for really atrocious behavior. Not only like it's not just ignored, it's applauded. And I mean, what are you telling the 6-year-old, 10-year-old?
Yeah.
Like that's good behavior, you know? So, sorry, my nose is really itchy right now. Ugh. Sorry. So in the years following, Jesperson said he often thought about what it would be like to do this to a human. No shocker there. So that desire manifested into 2 attempted murders. The first one happened when he was 10. Where's Kevin? 10. When he was friends with a boy named Martin, and the two would often get into trouble together, and Jesperson claimed he was often punished many times for things Martin had done and shifted the blame. This led Jesperson to violently attack Martin until his father pulled him away. So this is a really common thing for the rest of his life, because I didn't realize it until just saying it now out loud. Like, he victim blamed every single one of his victims.
Wow.
Every single one. So it's because of what Martin was doing that he had to try to kill him. You know, like that was just how it was going to go. So he later claimed his intention was to kill the boy. Like he was going to do it. And then about a year later, Jesperson was 11. He was swimming in a lake with another boy who held him down underwater until he blacked out. And then at a later time at a public pool, Jesperson attempted to drown that kid by holding his head underwater until a lifeguard pulled him away. All's kosher. All is kosher. You know, like we're not one adult saying this kid needs to go to therapy, or I don't know. They probably didn't have that in the late 60s, early 70s. I don't know. I don't know what they thought back then. Jesperson reported that he was raped at age 14. He graduated from high school in 1973, but did not attend college because his father did not believe he could do it. Like, you're going to fail, so don't do it. Although Jesperson was not successful with girls in high school, having never even attended a school dance or his prom, he did enter into a relationship after high school, and he married her. Right away.
Okay.
Yep. In 1975, when Jesperson was 20, he married Rose Huck, and the couple had 3 children, 2 daughters and 1 son. And Jesperson worked as a truck driver to support the family. Several years later, Huck began to suspect that Jesperson was having affairs when strange women would call. So, of course, tension in the marriage increased. And after 14 years, while Jesperson was on the road, Huck packed up her and her children's belongings and drove 200 miles away to live with her parents in Spokane, Washington. The oldest child, Melissa, was 10 years old at the time. Jesperson continued to spend time with his children when he was in town, but the couple eventually divorced in 1990. And whenever he saw his kids, he'd want to see his kids. He tried to see them as much as he could.
So was he not doing serial killer things during these 14 years? Like she didn't, I don't know. I would hope that I would know if I was married to a serial killer. I know that they hide it really well. I'm just saying I would hope that I would know, but I probably wouldn't. I'd probably be so oblivious.
At age 35, I'm not going to answer your question. So at age 35, standing 6 feet, 7.5 inches tall. That's just so tall. And weighing approximately 240 pounds, Jesperson began working toward the goal of joining the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, the RCMP, but an injury suffered while training ended this endeavor. So this is like before the trucking started. Okay, sorry. So that is simple right there. Anyway, so he wanted to get a job as a Mountie, but he got hurt really, really bad, and they would not let him come back to doing that. He then sought work again, and he became an interstate truck driver, and that's when they relocated to Washington. Jesperson soon realized that this job afforded him the opportunity to kill without being suspected. There was another interview with him where he was so mad that they wouldn't let him finish the Royal Canadian Mounted Police training because of his injury, that he was like, that's it. I'm going to get back at society for denying me of my dreams.
Wow.
Like, that's entitlement. Like,
I mean,
you're so angry, like you're gonna kill people because
it's an interesting gateway, I guess.
Yeah, gateway. Okay, so the trucking was, he realized I can do this, and it let him be on the road a lot, and he traveled the country. My dad was a truck driver for many years. He didn't travel all over the country. He stayed within like the region. So he wasn't driving to New York State and then to California, then to Florida, then to Arizona. Like, he was never like that far. He would be gone a few days at a time, but never, as long as Jesperson was. So Jesperson's first known victim was a young woman named Tanya Bennett on January 23rd, 1990, near Portland, Oregon. So they were at a bar. She was 23 years old. He introduced himself to Bennett at the bar and invited her to dinner. So they started talking. They had a lot to drink. They were playing pool. You know, they're drinking a lot. And he left the bar for some unknown reason, eventually came back and then said, hey, do you want to go to dinner? And she went outside with him and he looked in his wallet and he said, man, I don't have enough money. Do you want to come with me to my house and I'll pick up some money and then we'll go to dinner? She's like, yeah, okay, that sounds legit. And he's like this super tall, gentle giant. He was very soft-spoken, totally trustworthy, like seeming. He didn't seem like an aggressive guy. Mm-hmm. And so he took her back to the house that he was renting because at this point he had separated from his wife. And they had a little sexual escapade. And he said that she said something like, well, look, I'm not going to get off. So just go ahead and finish. And that made him so mad that he struck her on the right side of her face and then just kept hitting her in the face. And then finally put his huge hand into her neck and just like into her Adam's apple and crushed it. And when he talks about it, he's so matter of fact. And he's like, yeah, that's just what happened. That's it. That's the story. Like, and so as he's beating her, he realizes, oh my gosh, I'm going to get in trouble for this assault. So I'm going to kill her to hide the assault. So he kills her, goes back to the bar, proceeds to drink more beer to have an alibi, and talks to like everybody in the bar so that they can all pinpoint him there. Then he goes back home, loads up her body, travels this dark, lonely interstate, and finds a little bend, discards of her body, puts her over like an embankment, then gets back in, keeps driving, and then a few miles later, a little while later, he takes all of her belongings and throws them into like blackberry bushes. Then goes to a diner and stays up all night drinking coffee. Another alibi. Oh yeah, he was here all night, kind of like he was drinking coffee, talking to everybody. So he was like really covering his tracks, like as much as he could, because he didn't know if someone was going to come and look for him. So he was really trying to have an alibi. Early in the investigation of Bennett's murder, the information was all over the news about her. And there was a woman named Laverne Pavlinac, and she was reading all of these news reports and hearing about it on the news surrounding Tanya's death, and saw it as an opportunity to end a relationship that she was in with this man named John Sosnevsky. And he was apparently a drunk and really abusive. And she was a bit older than him. And so she thought, I can get him framed for this murder and get him. Ain't that some shit? So she even went so far as to go and buy a purse and put it in the trunk of his car and told the cops it was Tanya's. Yeah. She like went to like Goodwill, got this purse. Anyway, so Laverne set up a meeting with investigators, gave a false confession using the details that she'd gotten from the newspaper to give a detailed story about how Sosnevsky forced her to help him rape, murder, and dispose of Tanya's body. This was...
Wouldn't they get her arrested too for participating?
So in her mind, she thought this was like the best way of getting out of this relationship, even if it meant spending a couple of years in jail.
Oh my God. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That's just very extreme.
But she kept increasing her role in the crime. So instead of like, I was just forced, I didn't do anything, she kind of embellished it a little bit. You know, I think she was kind of excited maybe by the idea of this. Look, she was really trying to put her boyfriend in jail, and this is the way she saw to do it. She was like, look, if I got to spend a couple of years, I'm down to do that. So on March 5th, 1990, Laverne and John were both arrested and both were convicted of the murder on the 8th of February, 1991. So to avoid the possibility of facing the death penalty, Sosnovsky pleaded guilty. He was sentenced to life in prison, while Pavlinac was sentenced to no less than 10 years in prison, which was like way, way more than she had anticipated. So right away, she's like, haha, just kidding. I made all of that up. All of it. I'm lying. We're both innocent. Neither one of us did it. He shouldn't be getting life in prison, whatever. Like, it was okay that he got life in prison, but it wasn't okay that she got 10 years. And so she was like, I'm just joking. That wasn't me. But because she was able to say, this is where the body was found. Thank you, news media, for the information. They said, okay, so where's her purse? And she was like, I don't remember where we dropped that off. And so she couldn't pinpoint it. But they're like, you know what? She pinpointed the area where the body was found. So they did it. And her pleas were ignored. But as the trial was going on, something else happened. Jesperson was like, whoa. These people did not commit that murder. I did that. Like, his little ego started to get really bummed out about it, right? So he goes into a truck stop, writes on the bathroom stall, I killed Tanya Bennett, January 21, 1990 in Portland, Oregon. I beat her to death, raped her, and loved it. Yes, I'm sick, but I enjoy myself too. TOO people took the blame and I'm free. And he put the smiley face. Because he was like, no. I want credit for that, right? Laverne's lawyers were like, see, she was lying, which is like a whole other, you're going to get jail time for all
but
of
how can you believe something written on a truck stop bathroom? I mean, I don't feel like you should bank your
because
case
of
on that.
The date, like she died on this date, you know, anyway.
Like the details, yeah, I guess.
The details, right. So Laverne's lawyers tried to admit this into evidence, but because there was no defining details of the crime, there was nothing to lead them to the actual person. It wasn't convincing. And so it wasn't enough to show that Laverne wasn't guilty or John wasn't guilty. And so they were both charged. That evidence was never admitted into court, into the trial, and they were both charged. So when the bathroom message did not get the attention he desired, he started to write letters to media outlets and police departments confessing to the murders, starting with a 6-page letter to the Oregonian in which he revealed the details of his killings. And he would sign the letter with the smiley face, like the circle, 2 dots, and a smile. And so this led Phil Stanford, the journalist working on the story for the Oregonian, I don't know, to dub Jesperson the happy face killer. So that's how that comes about. I'm going to talk with my Canadian accent. About. So 2.5 years after Tanya's killing, the currently unidentified body of a woman Jesperson had raped and strangled was found near Blythe, California on August 30th, 1992. Jesperson said later that the Jane Doe's name was Claudia. Again, killed by strangulation, rape, being bound, and all of that. A month later, so the rest of these kind of happened in quick succession. A month later, in Turlock, California, the body of Cynthia Lynn Rose was discovered. And Jesperson claims that Rose was a sex worker who, so when truckers pull into a stop, there's women that work the parking lot, right? And so he said there were about 30 out that night, and he was trying to sleep. And in an interview, he said that Cynthia just sort of climbed up into his truck, and that startled him, which made him mad. The reporter who Jesperson was speaking with, because it's like a video call, so it was almost like a Zoom. So he's on the phone and talking to her. So she startled so the reporter says she startled him. That made him mad. So he tied her up, had sex with her, kept her alive for 4 days. 4 days. That's so crazy. So Jesperson was using this strangle and stop method. It's called something else, but I can't remember what they said. But it's like strangling to almost the point of death, letting go, and then strangling again. And so he either would wrap his hands around or push in on the Adam's apple, right? And for him, like, I have large hands, but like his hands were probably ginormous, and these women were tiny. The pictures of them, you could see they're just tiny people, and he was basically torturing them because his hands alone, when you're strangled, there are bones in your neck that break, right? And so he basically just crushed their necks. And so that's what he did for her. And basically that's torture. Just big old hands, you're breaking bones. And eventually he got bored and then just eventually killed her after the 4th day. He just killed her, let it out. In another interview, on a phone interview with ABC, he said, I just put her out of her misery. She had apparently been complaining about life in general and just like, oh, my life is so hard and this and the other. And he was like, well, if life is so bad, I can kill you and put you out of your misery. And according to him, she said, go for it. So he did. So he felt like he was doing her a favor. She wouldn't stop complaining about life. So it's her fault.
I see.
Victim blaming. His 4th victim was another sex worker, Lori Ann Pentland of Salem, Oregon, whose body was found in November of 1992. According to Jesperson, Pentland attempted to double the fee she charged for the sex he had been engaging in with her. She threatened to call the police, so he strangled her. It was also said that while engaging in a sex act with him, an oral sex act, she bit him, and that made him mad. So his story to different reporters was kind of like, some were more detailed and some were just more broad and vague. But either way, he may not have meant to kill her, but he had a trigger temper, and so she made him mad, and he killed her, as one does. He also kept her alive for a bit using that strangle and stop method he used with Cynthia Rose. And it was more than 6 months before Jesperson claimed his next victim. I mean, these are like boom, 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 like one after the other. In June of 1993, I need a sip. when he murdered another unidentified woman he claimed was named Carla or Cindy. And this was in Santanella, California. Police originally considered her death to be a drug overdose. More than 1 year later, in September of 1994, another Jane Doe was found in Crestview, Florida. Jesperson claims her name was Suzanne. So he might be strangling them without leaving the fingerprints, because he had mentioned that he just would put his fist, and it does, like, he's big enough and strong enough that would be enough. And a lot of times what happens, abusers use their forearm up against the wall. And so using that the pounds of pressure of just doing that, and it doesn't leave those marks on a neck. So you can kind of hide that sort of abuse. So Suzanne was in September 1994. It says soon after Suzanne, Angela Sabriz ran into Jesperson at a bar in Spokane, Washington in January of 95. She traveled with him in his truck, and it didn't start out like as a sexcapade, it wasn't like he didn't kill every woman he ever slept with, right? But she started to travel with him east in his truck. He said he strangled her because at one point she wouldn't let him sleep. And she was like, come on, let's just keep going. Let's keep going. And she wanted to get to where she wanted to get to, and didn't want to have him take the break. So he murdered her. And after the murder, Jesperson remembered that they had spent days together. I mean, days. And he had let her use a credit card. And so he decided to drag her body underneath his truck to impede identification. He tied her to his semi. Until the rope got loose. Face down. He left her remains in Nebraska, though she was likely killed in Wyoming. Really sad. Okay, last one. Jesperson's last victim was Julie Winningham, who had been his girlfriend. And she had friends, family, and they'd met him. She was killed in Washington State on March 10th, 1995, and her body was discovered the next day. And she had friends, family, people who would indeed miss her. And that was his mistake. This is why he got caught, right? Because he had been, up to this point, he had been killing strangers, probably using aliases, right? And going completely undetected. But with Julie, her friends had met him. They knew he drove a big blue semi-truck and that his name was either Keith or Chris. They knew he was this really tall dude. And they knew enough, right? They knew enough. But what got him was that he signed his name on a bill of sale because of the used car that Julie was trying to sell. And so as a witness, Keith Hunter Jesperson, and signed underneath, he had his name and signature on a piece of paper. So when police started to interview her friends, they're like, yeah, I don't know his name, but he did sign this piece of paper for the car that I bought. And there it was. And that's how he got caught. So his entire name was on a piece of paper. It was just crazy. How lucky. He had gotten so arrogant. He didn't think he'd be caught. He had also gotten so addicted to the killing that when Julie made him mad, he killed her and then just like killed her, raped her, tied her up, dumped her on the side of Highway 14. I mean, that was like, she was just like everybody else. She was just like everybody else. Jesperson himself has said he has taken more than 166 lives. Sure. I mean, there's a lot of murders that are unsolved, right? Yeah. But only the 8 murders that I've talked about have been attributed to him. He has not given any other clues to any other. He has done a lot of lying. He tried to connect himself to the Green River Killer, Gary Ridgway. He tried to say like, oh yeah, we killed sisters. We killed twins. Each of us killed one of the twins. And then we like dumped the bodies in the same place. And then we're like, oh, let's go get a cup of coffee. And so they went for coffee to talk about, killing and stuff. Mm-hmm. And then it was like, you're so full of it. That's not true. So anyway, he tried to give himself a lot of notoriety. He wanted to be famous. He really wanted the notoriety of that. In April of 1990, he sexually assaulted a woman who managed to escape, as she is the sole survivor of Jesperson's. According to him, after he killed his 5th victim in 1993, he managed to stave off murderous urges for more than a year by committing arson while on the road as a trucker. The man just liked to commit crimes, I guess, is what he's trying to say. So finally, in March of 1995, March 30th of 1995, the murder of Julie Winningham caused him to get arrested. He had been questioned by police. They actually called his job, the trucking company. They called his job and they said, okay, we're going to tell him that he has to go to Las Cruces, New Mexico, and for a pickup, a job. And so the cops were the job. They were there waiting for him when he got there. He said he didn't know anything. They didn't have anything. They didn't have any evidence. He wouldn't talk. So they had to let him go. But in the days following, Jesperson had 2 suicide attempts, both by taking sleeping pills, 2 bottles of sleeping pills. Unfortunately, it just turned out that he'd wake up well rested. And yeah. So meanwhile, he wrote his brother a letter detailing that. He's like, I've tried to kill myself to no avail. I killed all these people. So he ended up turning himself in, hoping that it would result in leniency during his sentencing. And he'd called the detective and he left a message like, you're right. I've been feeling really bad about this. I've been fighting with myself the last couple of days. I tried to kill myself, but there aren't enough pills in this whole damn country. So I'll be in Arizona and I'll call you when I get there. Like, he wants to turn himself in. He also wrote a letter to his brother, like I mentioned, in which he confessed to having killed 8 people over the course of the 5 years, and he mailed it. This led police agencies in several states to reopen lots of cold cases, many of which were found to be possible victims of Jesperson. His brother had turned over the letter, even though Keith had asked him to destroy the letter. He just didn't feel right holding on to that evidence. And keeping it from he just didn't feel right. So while in custody, Jesperson began revealing details of his killings and making claims of many others, most of which he later recanted, like that Gary Ridgway one. On January 7th, 1996, more than 5 years after their conviction, Laverne and John Sosnovsky Laverne Pavlinak and John Sosnovsky were released from prison after Jesperson and his attorney offered his confession with convincing evidence of his guilt. He pointed out where the purse was, and they found it. They found it in the blackberry bush. They found her ID.
5 years later?
Mm-hmm.
Damn.
They found her ID in perfect condition. So they're like, He pinpointed the location within 100 yards of where they ended up finding it. It was there. Yeah. So that's crazy. So that could only have been pinpointed by the murderer. And so the other two were released. In one of the documentaries, they said that after the pair were released, Jesperson cried. And so they weren't sure, like, was it because they were free? And he was like, oh, I did a good thing. Probably not. Or was it because he could have gotten away with this one had he just kept his mouth shut? But after the Tanya Bennett murder and the Julie Winningham murder, he began serving 3 consecutive life sentences at the Oregon State Penitentiary in Salem. In September of 2009, Jesperson was indicted and extradited to Riverside County, California on murder charges, and he was convicted of another murder and received a 4th life sentence in January of 2010. He's now serving 7 consecutive life sentences at the Oregon State Penitentiary, and that's what CBS 12 News reported this year. So Jesperson's oldest daughter in November of 2008, Melissa Moore, she has now appeared on Dr. Phil to talk about her father. She was also on Oprah Winfrey. She's done Lifetime movies. Monster in My Family is the Lifetime. And on 2020, there was a 2020 special on ABC. She did publish a book titled Shattered Silence, The Untold Story of a Serial Killer's Daughter. And she recounts living with him until 1990, until the divorce of her parents, and how her father was different when she was in elementary school. Their house bordered an apple orchard, and Jesperson killed stray cats and gophers that wandered nearby. One day she watched, horrified, as he hung stray kittens from the family's clothesline. She ran to get her mother, and when they returned, the kittens were all on the ground dead. He had watched and laughed as the kittens clawed at each other to escape. Then he killed them. So, oh my God, that is just like the worst. She did some BBC interviews. She wrote an article for the BBC, but she said, like, all of this wasn't a huge surprise. She said, I loved my dad, but I didn't really enjoy being around him. He made me anxious. He never molested or beat any of us. It was just a feeling that something was building, seething beneath the surface. I had once tried to articulate it to a school counselor, but it didn't come out right, she said, adding, he would leer at women in public, make lewd remarks about them, and harass them. She did emphasize to the outlet that he could be a doting and good dad at times, though, which made it all the more confusing. She says, there isn't a book out there called What Do You Do When You Find Out That Your Dad's a Serial Killer? There's nothing out there that tells you what to do, she told the BBC. And she said in another interview that when her mom told the kids about their dad, she remembers feeling like her knees were about to give, like they were buckling. This is from the Monster in My Family series. She felt like her knees were buckling, so all she could think to do was to go up to her bedroom and get into bed. And she could hear her sister crying and sobbing, and all she could do was just lay there. And she started to remember the story about the cats on the clothesline. And it occurred to her in that moment, my dad could do this. If he could do that to kittens, then he could do that to people. And she was so young. She was just so young. And when that realization hit, that's when she started to cry and scream into her pillow. It's just horrible. In June of this year, a new true crime podcast appeared on iTunes called Life After Happy Face. And it's hosted by Melissa and a forensic criminologist, Dr. Laura Petler. And I listened to the first episode, and it's crazy. She really talks, it just came out this summer. It starts with it being Father's Day and a call from Jesperson that she did not answer, but he did leave a message. They want to show what life is like on the other side of murder, like the families of the murderers. So I know I'll be listening to more episodes, but I just listened to the first one. And so if you want to go check that out, it is called Life After Happy Face. And that's it. That's my episode. Thank you.
Well,
it was a long one. Woo!
That's rough. I'm just going to start reading the answers to the question of the week. I can't process your story right now. I have to walk through a dark parking lot to get to my car. So thanks. Your stories always make me regret that decision.
Listen, I hope that the people who walk their dogs at night and listen to our podcast have stopped doing that. Go for a walk or a run at night.
Glenn says, I am Glenn, ghost of a great man who has a bit more to say.
Oh, hey,
I feel like you will always have a lot to say, Glenn. We love you. RC says, I am RC, ghost of the island on my side porch. Okay, then.
All right.
Brittany says, I am Brittany, ghost of the family. Sarah.
What family, Brittany? What family, Brittany? Okay.
Sarah says, I am Sarah, ghost of course. All right.
Ghost of what?
Course.
Ghost of course. Oh, okay. All right.
Noelle says, I am Noelle, ghost of balloons. Love it. Mandy says, I am Mandy, ghost of the year, and I have to be there by lunchtime. Oh, Mandy. Her food pictures are always amazing. Ryan's always posting amazing pictures. So that makes sense that she would need to be there by lunchtime. Ashley says, I am Ashley, ghost of the dog is going on the bed. All right. Carissa says, I am Sparkles, ghost of a hat for you and I. And then Linda says, I am Linda, ghost if I have a beer. Angela, I am not sure, ghost of the individual or entity listed above and beyond.
Oh, gosh, that sounds cool. I am not sure.
Kimberly says, I am not available, ghost of the kids. Lori says...
That's accurate.
Lori says, I am so sorry, ghost of the delay. So those are the answers.
So that's
the question
interesting.
of the week. Thank you very much for answering.
So some of the people went with their name, and then some
did
of
not.
the people did the predictive text.
Yeah.
So like Lori and I both had, I am so sorry. I am so sorry.
So
That's funny.
we always ask a question of the week, and we love to read your answers, even if it's after we've posted the episode.
Keep entertaining us.
If you have question of the week suggestions, you can always message them to our page, and we will use them because we're not very good at finding them ourselves. So we're running out of material. So feel free to send them our way.
Are you saying my question of the week sucks?
No, I'm saying it takes forever for us to find questions of the week because it's tough to not repeat ones we've already used. I mean, we are like 4 seasons in now.
I think we need to go back to season 1. Just start.
We tried that and people pointed it out. So,
Sarah. So, all right, everybody. Well, thank you for tuning in once again. We love you so much. You complete us. But we will be back next week. Ashley has the story, and so make sure. What?
Oh, I said, yes, I will. I will have a story.
She's not sure what that is right now, but she will have a story. There's a list. We have a list.
We do have a list.
But anyway, have a great Thursday, rest of your Thursday, a great weekend, and we will see you next week.
Bye.